Tell me what the Chinese are thinking this morning.
Well, I think they're seeing a trade talks that they thought were on hold for about 3 months disintegrate, and now things are potentially spiraling out of control.
Because of us or because of them?
Well, they weren't expecting the hike, the tariff hike that the president did. And then they, rather than just sort of batten down and be quiet during the leadership retreat, they responded by allowing the little blowout to pass 7. A very minor move. And Trump didn't like that at all. It was a poke in his eye. So then the U.S. administration is responding. All of these are very economically insignificant events. The problem is that politically they're creating a frost over the talks. And this is going to make it very difficult to progress through trade talks when you've got this type of animosity.
So one of the big questions we had yesterday morning was whether this was something the Chinese had let happen or were actively doing. And there was a sort of a question mark about whether it really mattered. Clearly, this was not something they were actively doing. But one of the other things that Michelle Caruso-Cabrera talked about, we're 42 minutes into the show right now, we have not talked about Hong Kong and whether you think there's an overlay there to what's happening here with the yuan.
Well, it makes, look, the Chinese let the currency go past 7. This was not this is not incidental. It wasn't an accident. This isn't something that some bureaucrat at the PBOC did. This would not have happened had the Beijing leadership not weighed in. Now, what you have in Hong Kong is a really deteriorating situation in which Chinese troops may be involved very, very shortly in a big way. And so this is causing significant pain. I think that they may be looking forward to the fact that they want to have this wiggle room past 7. This is a good time in responding to Trump. But blowing past 7 is a big, big move. This hasn't been seen since before Lehman collapsed. So this is the Chinese sending a signal.
What the real number is? I've been watching 7 for years. That's the magic number. They're not really manipulating their currency down. They're propping it up, and they have been forever. If it was a free-floating currency, how much depreciation would occur? 15, 30%? What's the number?
Nobody really knows. I think if they free floated overnight with bad news, I mean, you could see 30%. I think the problem is nobody knows. Nobody knows what the fair market of the yuan is because there's no market mechanism for gauging that. So until there is, and this would be a very, very dangerous thing to do, you have to have the PBOC propping things up and just everybody operate with the Chinese as a managed currency for the time being. The fact that the U.S. is pushy against that, everybody knows this makes no economic sense whatsoever. This is the political move. The president wanted to hit China, and they want to prepare the way for Department of Commerce to be able to call China's currency manipulation and a subsidy. And to use countervailing trade as a countervailing trade mechanism for going back at this.
So it's not necessarily a concern about U.S. intervention in the currency markets. It's more what the U.S. could do to offset that if that is categorized as some sort of subsidy.
Right. This is the first of the move against the Chinese currency, and the Commerce Department is setting up to do that in the coming months.
Are you surprised the Chinese appear to have sort of stepped back as quickly as they have in the past 24 hours?
I don't think their intention was ever to blow this out. I think that they wanted to test 7.
They wanted to test 7, a little stick in the eye to say, hey, we can do this.
Right. And as I've said many times before, it doesn't make sense for the Chinese to pull out of the talks right now. They get a lot more from doing just enough to appease the president, to extend this on to later in the year. They need to worry about Huawei in the short term. The temporary general license expires on August 19th. They have to worry about their tech companies. They have to worry about this blowing out to 25%. It's not impossible. September 1, if this escalates over the next month, we see 25% tariffs on September 1st instead of 10%.
Leland, is it good or bad for the Chinese economy for the yuan to devalue?
Well, look, it is over. This has been long overdue. So if you had any type of market mechanism, the yuan would have blown off steam 6 months ago, a year ago. So this is long overdue. That said, the Chinese have to worry about this from a political angle, and they also have to be mindful of their long-term goals, which is to empower consumers. And you empower consumers with a stronger currency that puts purchasing power in the pockets of households to spend more. So as a long-term goal, China wants a stronger currency. In the short term, they're going to have very big problems with this trade war.
I mean, we've got a lot of, China will see a lot of problems in a lot of different sectors. Airlines, for instance, that hold dollar-denominated debt, right? Real estate developers, et cetera. And the Chinese consumer has less purchasing power. So how long can this actually go? And are you concerned at this point in terms of China's economic outlook, that this is a pressure on that economy?
It's definitely a pressure. I think a lot of people look at this as just a trade war that stepped up a little bit over time. But what's actually happened is the beginning of the trade war, there were tariffs, and those tariffs were dealt with by the Chinese through backdoor subsidies, through currency depreciation, through other things. So they were basically counteracted as much as possible. Where we're going now is a place where they can't do this. And if they were trying to do that with the currency, not only would there be a major political reaction, but they could lose control. I think the fear over what the Chinese are doing right now is not about breaking 7. It's that now that they are no longer restrained by 7, this could go anywhere. And once it starts, the Chinese themselves may not be able to stop the fall of the yuan along the way.